All right, we are live. Another week, another guest. I'm Sébastien from ENZYME at Work. It's my podcast, weekly podcast. What I love to talk about is everything related about entrepreneurship, collaboration, science, and the overall theme that I like is accelerating innovation in any way, shape, or form. So this week we have another great guest, Matthieu, venture builder at Mach49. And the topic of this week is how we can, let's say, what is the secret source of venture building and how it is innovating in between that, the intersection of discipline. Why I choose this thema and why I choose Matthieu, because a lot of people, since about a year at least, are talking about venture building. There's a lot of, sorry to say, bullshit. There's a lot of good stuff, but I thought that it was time to bring somebody that knows what he's talking about and understand it, so that we can, because I think it's a very relevant topic about that we need to talk about it today. Without further ado, Matthieu, can you please introduce yourself?
Awesome. Thank you, Sébastien. Hi, I'm Matthieu, and my journey has been a worldwide adventure through the startup and the corporate innovation world, stretching from the vibrant streets of China to the innovative heart of the Netherlands, where I'm currently living. My path has taken me from spearheading projects with global giants like Intel, Scania, Infinity MTR, and Siemens at Techstars, Exnode in Greater China, to diving deep into the clean tech startup scene as a COO of Geofluxus, a startup here in the Netherlands. And now at Mach49, I'm blending the best of both worlds, combining the agility and spirit of startups with the strength and resources of large companies. And it's really all about creating the magic mix where early stage ventures not only survive, but try to thrive with maximum execution and leveraging every asset available to spark meaningful growth and innovation.
Thank you very much, Matthieu. Thank you. So, can you just tell us? So, venture building. Everybody is talking about this term. What does it mean from your perspective?
Well, so venture building is really the process or the set of activities to launch something, something exciting, something that will look like a startup at some point, and hopefully a meaningful business that employs people and create a lot of value for the stakeholders. The way I'm seeing it, though, is from something that's a little more institutionalized within large corporations. So the analogy that I was thinking of is picture, us being chefs in a kitchen full of hidden ingredients, and imagine big companies with all of these brilliant ideas and talented people, and kind of like having secret recipes and top-notch chefs just waiting to create something amazing. So what I like to do, my role is really about mixing these ingredients together. What is critical for me, though, is not about just making a one-time hit dish. It's about setting up these companies so that they keep wiping up incredible innovations on their own. It's about making sure that they can keep serving up new ventures that could really change the game. And today's fast-moving world, you don't want to just innovate once. You want to keep it going. It's truly crucial for survival. So venture building, but what really gets me excited is how do we make this at scale?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So do you mean that, there's a lot of things that have been tried by the corporate world to innovate, a lot of things, right? But if we focus on venture building, your way is that it's to bring idea to market in a form and shape of a company in a repetitive and systematic manner? This is what you mean?
As much as possible, yes. We have a core methodology or key steps, key questions really that we ask ourselves at every level of development of a venture. But the ingredients are always the same. We need to identify great people. We need to figure out what's going to be an interesting idea that's going to resonate with potential customers. and through that journey, figure out how do we create initially a minimum viable product, but eventually a set of services, products, offerings, whatever, that can drive revenues. And when you're thinking in the context of a large organization, venture building is critical because you know that you have to reach incredibly high number very quickly to match expectations of a board or important internal stakeholders. But at its core, it's creating early stage startups quickly, efficiently, leveraging internal resources.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit into a high level view. So why venture building is becoming such a big thing right now in the corporate? Do you think they finally cracked the case and found a way to innovate in a systematic way, or what do you think?
I don't think that venture building is the only set of activities that you should do to find growth. I think it's part of a bigger strategy. So let's assume that you are heading a large corporation and you are seeking new growth. You have already R&D, you already have a CVC, maybe or maybe not. You probably already have an M&A department. We typically consider venture investing and venture building two typically new activities that large corporations should consider and start doing. Because as you try to engage with the ecosystem of ventures, but more importantly, again, as you try to seek growth, the way you might be doing it for a new idea, new concept, something adjacent to a core business, the form is going to differ. Sometimes acquiring a business is going to be the right path forward. Someone investing in an early stage startup is going to be great. Sometimes doubling down on R&D is going to be the right path forward. Venture building is that opportunity to explore something with a different angle and try to get within 3 to 5 years meaningful revenues out of it. Typically, because venture building allows you to look at the future of your industry by deeply listening at the pains, hopes, and dreams of your customers right now.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. So now the key question is, how do you make it happen? How do you do this in a repetitive, successful manner?
Yeah, that's the trick. We typically say that the large organizations all have possible unicorns within, right? Because they've hired the bright and brightest available who have wonderful ideas. They have the labs, they have R&D, they have connections, distributions, they have everything it takes. But they also have different antibodies and they have also some systems that create a lot of inertia. It's so easy to shut down an early stage ideas. It's unbelievable because it lives only in people's heads. So the typical scenario is when you've worked really hard on something for 2 to 3 months, and then someone who's never been trained in looking through the lenses of an early stage investor comes and say, "This is stupid. It's never going to make money. I don't see it working. We should," and then suddenly that gets shut down. But the reality is this could have blossomed into something really critical for the organization if only you had given it more time. So typically what we try to engineer is a case study that will really prove the impact that venture building can have on a core business or an adjacent opportunity in the market. And what typically happens is when you have this visible, successful case story, lots of questions get asked. How do we do with employment? How do we do with equity? How do we do with investing, giving them more financial opportunities and the finances that they need? So all these questions somewhat start getting asked. And it's a good time to start thinking, well, what if we were to do a second venture and a third one and a fourth one? What kind of environment would we want to create for them? What kind of profiles and skills and support also within the mothership would we need to put in place for that to thrive, essentially? And as you start having your venture number 2, number 3, well, the first one becomes some kind of mentor or rising star that helps open more doors, create more opportunities, coach also the following founders, help justify all of the difficult decisions that have to be taken. And some companies will decide to create an umbrella, like a venture studio. Some companies decide to put this right under the CTO purview. Some decide to have an innovation department. All that is important is, on one hand, the access to the strength of the mothership, but also the benefits of thriving as an early stage startup. So trying not to get shut down at every single review meeting is going to be important.
It raised a bell. I remember my corporate life where I used to say that the innovation management software, process we had back in the days was the best killing machine we ever had. But so now I'm going to ask you, I guess, a question that your customers is asking Mac49. You say you are engineering startups, which is the success rate of startup is say 1%. So our guys are basically, how do we make it better than basically 1% success?
Yeah.
How do you make this happen?
It takes a lot of work, and it starts at the beginning. We really work hard with the highest levels in an organization, really trying to understand what matters for them. Because if we work on something that is so adjacent that it's not critical, we're never going to be talking with the top leaders who will provide some level of protection of this venture. At the same time, there are politics within an organization that you want to understand and be cautious of. So you wouldn't be able to create a direct competitor to an existing business. If you want to, that would take more care, and that's something that might be risky for first venture. And then you embark them on a journey where you explain the challenges associated with looking at a startup. It's not going to be your typical P&L. It's going to look very different. The IP creation is also going to be looking differently. The kind of people that you want to hire for this project and promote, and the way you reward them is all going to be different. And these conversations should start taking place at an earlier stage. And then when we get involved, we don't come in with a consulting approach. We really come as co-founders. So I'm essentially working with my teams. I'm rolling up my sleeves, and when I'm sharing that experience and curriculum and method and all of our tools, I'm also doing the work alongside the team. So I'm going to be doing the first interview and many more afterwards, customer interview, I'm going to be brainstorming value propositions that we test, and then prototypes. I'm going to be scratching my head, thinking in the shower or as I run for the opportunity in the market. And that provides a momentum that is like incredible to see. And at the end of our engagement, you do see a team that is transformed, that is excited, that's really, really willing to sacrifice a lot to make the project a reality. But again, while that happens, you still need to work with the internal stakeholders, be it middle management, the ones that are typically employing some people within our team, but also the top leaders, making sure that they are already starting to think about the next fundraising required, or they're already thinking on opening doors to find potential proof of concept partners. They're already thinking on how to streamline procurement processes, for example, right? So all of these conversations happen as the team is meant to focus on finding the biggest opportunity in the market.
Wow. Well, when I first heard about venture building, I was innovation manager for several years. I was like, they finally cracked the case. That was my view on venture building. And kind of reinforced based on what you tell me, you have this very good strategic alignment from the top. You have the sponsoring from the top. And then you have what I love, this kind of working together. So you have the corporate guys working with you, the startup guys. That's a perfect setup. And then you have this kind of preserved environment, like, okay, guys, there's SAP, but maybe you don't need to go into SAP now. We can find a way so that you don't have to put your square thing into a triangle thing into SAP. It's not going to fly. So it's the best of both worlds. I don't know. It's my first impression while I'm listening to you. Anything that you would recommend based on what you've seen to really, aside of what you mentioned, any other thing you would recommend to make it right?
The tough one is finding the balance on the relationship between this early stage venture and the mothership. So we really want to encourage the founders that we work with to consider the mothership advantage. And that's how they can thrive compared to startups, like external startups that are likely more agile, will have access to different kind of talent, different kind of funding opportunities. But large companies will have probably access to better, more talent, sources that have different timelines and different situations to deal with. They have distribution channels, they have competencies, IPs, all of these things can be leveraged. So when you come in as a founder of an early stage venture from a large company, it's easy to say, well, I'm finally like freedom, I'm on my own, but I'm still employed, so everything's fine. Let's just go as fast as we can. And there is sometimes a tendency of forgetting a little bit that actually the mothership, while it has antibodies, it's the best ever possible advantage that you can play with. And we've seen ventures that were able to take existing IP, that were able to launch way faster to the market, because when you come in with a big name, it carries weight to potential customers, so that opens doors that are incredible. But again, it's an interesting line, and we have long conversations around where do we put the needle on that balance.
Okay, well, okay, you have this idea, then you come on board. At one point in time, the big guys say, okay, we are going to work with Mark 49 or another venture builder studio. Okay, guys, we need support to make it happen. So some guys are going to say, okay, I'm going to work in this, but still I have my own, let's say, position in this business unit. When and how do you cut the cordon, like we say in French, to be fully dedicated to this? I mean, this is quite tricky in the corporate world, right?
Those are probably some of the most emotional conversations I have typically, because it's hard. I mean, we're talking about people who sometimes have been 20 years within an organization, and suddenly they got tapped on the shoulder by their manager. You're going to be part of this team. We can't really tell you what the team is going to be working on. We can't really tell you how long you're going to be working on it. And we can't really tell you how you're going to go through that adventure. So there is a massive amount of courage and ambition that we want to detect early on within the team that we're going to be working on. So we typically interview them. We try to understand their own professional goals and at which stage of life they are at. But we really work towards having their 100% commitment from what we call the week zero. Because we've realized that if you're still being called to certain meetings that you have with your full-time job, you're never going to be in the right mindset to take in all of the information that we're going to be collecting from the market. So we expect full-time commitment, which is, again, it's a big, bold career trajectory.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the 3 to 9 months engagement, there is a very serious conversation around, okay, how do we move forward? Do we bring everybody or some back to business? Do we create an internal project? Do we make this a spin-off already? These are all conversations, and I've seen lots of different flavors, but these are difficult, better to be planned kind of conversation to have.
Yeah, it takes time. I mean, when you're in the corporate world for 20 years, your brain is thinking in specifically. And let's talk about spin-off. Everything went well. You are your MVP. You have your level of traction. You're on track with your financials. You're planning. The big boss are happy. When do you spin off, and how do you spin off? So it means that you have in terms of equity, you have 51% share. How does it the equity wise and spin off wise? How is it the structure?
Equity is a long conversation on its own. Some corporations are open to the idea. Some are are not ready to have that conversation at all, because it implies a lot when it comes to salary grids and everything. So that's part of the big conversation. Do we want to keep this internally because it became so strategic that we are thinking that eventually it's going to be absorbed into one of our core function? Or do we see this startup as thriving only if it's a little outside of us? I've seen ventures being spinned out after just like a couple of years, and I've seen some being spinned in again eventually. I've seen all of the scenarios, to be frank, and it depends on the mothership, because obviously they are the ones very likely funding the biggest part of the venture for the usually until round B or C. It depends on the team as well, and they have a power of negotiation, of course. And then it depends of the market opportunity. Sometimes you really need access to the brand or to the IP, so it's better to stay tight with the mothership. Sometimes it's better to fly on your own. It's no rules there.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much, Matthieu. So I see we are already out of time. I got dragged away because I mean this is one of my favorite topics, and I didn't look at the time. Sorry for the audience. But I would like still to ask my last question. How do you see your space in 5 years from now? Venture building, 5 years.
Yeah. Well, the big hope is a bustling ecosystem where big companies don't just have like just a toe in the innovation water. They are diving in head first. You'd have a system where every large corporation run like a dynamic startup where they have venture capital incubators. They turn fresh ideas into industry leading ventures on a constant recurring basis. And for us as customers, we'd see them having innovation as part of their DNA. The products or the services or the offerings that we're using, they get updated more frequently. There are more cool stuff coming to market. I really think that the real magic will happen internally, tapping into R&D development competencies that are already part of these companies. And then you leverage all of the greatest tools that are coming to market. We haven't talked about AI, but this is something that we're seeing as a super exciting opportunity for venture building, where you get to optimize and automate so many of the manual tasks that we used to have. So, it's only going to make this process of creating a community of venture building plus venture investing plus so many other things, with the purpose of helping large company grow as fast as possible and launch cool stuff to market and make customers happier.
All right. Very good. Thank you very much, Matthieu, for being our guest this week. Thank you very much for the people that are listening now, the people that are going to listen afterwards. Thank you, Matthieu, again for your time. We are going to see us next week for another guest, another great discussion.
Thank you, Sébastien.
Have a great day, Matthieu. Everybody, enjoy, and we keep in touch and discussing about all of this topic.